Okay, welcome back everybody. Another day, another drawing. I imagine for those of you that aren't enjoying this, you're probably having a really fun week right now. But I'm going to try to make this quick and to the point. And I know I said that yesterday on the canines, but today I mean it. So already right off the bat, I haven't written out any of the measurements. I figure you guys should know how to do that by now. I've already plotted everything out. So we're going to jump into this. Again, Miss Hicks flipped the teeth on me, so I'm going to be working off of number 5, which is what I drew when I was in you guys' position, and we're drawing number 12 right now, so I might draw something backwards again like I did with the canine, so forgive me, I'm sorry. Anywho, so the premolar, this is our first premolar. So this is going to be, talking about really transitioning into the next tooth down the line, like we were talking with the canine. This is where we see a lot of that come into play, because this premolar, in a lot of times, can look very similar to the canine from the facial aspect. So I'm actually not going to do the facial aspect because that should be pretty simple, especially after doing the canine the other day. So today we're going to work on the lingual aspect first, and then you guys should be able to figure out the facial. Mainly just because I want to point out one thing about the drawing of the lingual view, and that's really being able to show in your drawing that you have the two cusps present. So let's just go ahead and get started. We're going to draw in our, I'm going to start from the top here. We're going to draw in our root here from the start, and again, this root should be very similar to what we did with the canine, where it curves distally. And the root of the premolar is going to be quite a bit skinnier than, not nearly as wide as the canine. So it tapers quite a bit more, and I'm off to kind of a bad start here. So there we go. All right, that's better. And then we got to bring it down to the marks that we have for our CEJ. So on the mesial side, that came down 1.1 millimeters. And then on the distal side, it came down 0.7. So we'll just add those in. And then to the crown. So the crown on the lingual side, similar to our canine, is that the mesial side of the tooth, the height of contour is going to be a lot further towards the incisal third, the incisal 1/3 of the crown, and the distal height of contour or contact is going to be much closer to the middle third of the crown. So that means that our distal crown is going to be a lot more rounded, kind of like that. And then our mesial side is going to be it's going to be round, but it's still going to be a little bit more flattened out compared to the distal side. And then we don't have as sharp of a cusp for the most part as the canine. It's not quite as sharp. It really is a lot more rounded. Sometimes you will see a little bit sharper cusp, but remember we're also looking at this from the lingual aspect, so it's going to look a little bit more round. That's too flat. So let's round that out a little bit more. There we go. Okay, and then we'll draw in our CEJ. So you'll start to notice that the CEJ curvature is not nearly as prominent as we had on some of the other teeth. As we move back, it gets kind of less and less curved. it's less drastic in the curve. Okay, so there is our lingual view. Now the other thing about our first premolars is that often you'll find a bifurcated root in the first premolar at the apical 1/3 of the root. So we'll see that a little bit better when we do either the mesial or distal drawing. But in terms of the lingual and facial view, we just need to add in kind of a little root apex up here, and that's behind. So that would be, if we're looking at the lingual aspect, then this would be the facial root, and then this would be the palatal root. I don't think you have to label that, but just to kind of give you perspective as to what's going on. So I'm just gonna shade this back one to kind of show that it's behind that. And then, yeah, not a ton going on with this, but we do need to add in our second cusp. So we can kind of just draw a line, like a really wide spaced M almost, that will kind of help us visualize that we have two cusps happening here. Like that. So something kind of like that. Use the pictures that you're looking at to kind of guide you, but that just kind of helps give us the idea that we have two cusps here. So that is our lingual aspect. Again, facial aspect is just the mirror image of this, so just draw, the roots pointing the other directions, or just adjust that however you need to do. Anyway, you guys know how to do that by now. So that is our lingual view of number 12. So we're going to change this up just a little bit. I'm just going to erase here. And we'll jump into I just got to fix my crown length here. There we go. I accidentally erased that. All right, so we still have the same length. So now we're just looking at our width, and we will make this, let's do, hold on, let me pull up my picture here. Okay, let's do the mesial view. I think that'll be a little bit, there's a couple of things in there that I can point out that'll be helpful. So let's get our measurements in. So our buccal lingual crown is 9.2. And then our buccal lingual root width is 8.2. So fairly close to what we have for our crown width. And this would be our mesial CEJ curvature, so that's 1.1. So I'll get that in right there. Okay, I'm gonna try to not draw this backwards here. So first things first is this is where our picture is really going to help us out, because we need to draw this root as being bifurcated at the more towards the apical 1/3. So we're going to have two parts to this root. So let's just go ahead and get started. We'll just draw kind of up, and there's a little bit of curve into these. So just do your best, just look at the picture. But all right, so the way that this is going to look from this view is that these roots, the apices of these roots are going to almost be kind of bending in towards each other a little bit. And at least from the picture that I had used in drawing this, it was, oh gosh dang it, I'm drawing number 5, sorry. The buckle root has a little bit more of a bend towards the center of the tooth, kind of that central axis of the tooth. And the lingual root is a little bit straighter, I guess you could say, at least from the image that I saw. Remember, this is going to be different for everybody, but this is just kind of a generalization. And then we'll just kind of roughly draw that in to where they connect here. That's not bad. Okay. And then we have our, I gotta change that. Sorry, I'm not happy with that. Okay, that's better. And then let's go ahead and jump into the crown. So the buccal height of contour, or the buccal curvature of the crown, is going to be a little bit more prominent. And this is because the buccal cusp is longer than the lingual cusp. So it needs to be larger. And that's really, when we're talking about the length of the crown, the total length of the crown is from the CEJ to its longest point. So in that case, that's going to be the buccal cusp. So that is going to be what comes down to our mark for our crown here. And then the lingual crown is a little bit shorter. So when we draw that in, and we're just kind of guesstimating here, you just need to make it look shorter than it is. All right, so that's about there. And then we're just going to kind of, I'm just going to get kind of a rough sketch of this in here. That's pretty good. So there we have our two cusps, and I'm going to make this look a little bit better here. Now, this is where it's a little bit distinct on the mesial view. Sorry, let me write that up here so we can remember what we're doing here. So I can remember what I'm doing here. All right, there we go. So this is where we're going to see the mesial marginal groove that actually will extend towards the roots, so towards the CEJ. And this doesn't need to look like really good, but what you're going to see here is this ridge kind of extends from this cusp here, this cusp tip, and it's going to come across, oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm drawing that backwards. It's from the buccal side. Okay, so it's going to extend up and come across here, and then we're actually going to see it extend kind of up this way towards the CEJ. And so that will appear very, and it's not quite that far down. It actually kind of cuts across where the intersection of those two cusps is. Kind of like that. So there we have our mesial view. So this, down here, this is kind of shaded, it's three-dimensional. So I'm going to add a little shading to show that that's kind of going back that way, kind of towards the distal aspect of the tooth. And then we need to add in our CEJ. And this does kind of have a little bit of a distinct shape. It's kind of like a wave here a little bit. And then the biggest thing here is, since this root has started to bifurcate, then you're actually going to have an area on the mesial aspect of the root, and this is super important to remember when scaling, that is actually depressed. And so if this depression is at all exposed, then it's, as Miss Dyer will put it, and you'll soon come to love the way she says this, it's a hidey hole for bacteria to get into and just kind of hang out. So that root depression, so if we were to shade this in, what this kind of would look like, and I'm going to use a different color here, what you'll actually start to see is that you have, oops, that is not a different color. There we go. So you're going to start to see that this actually almost looks, with this depression, that now these roots are almost more distinct from one another, and they're more like two roots. And so because of that bifurcation, it creates this depression through here. And again, that's kind of the moving back towards the molars, where we have fully bifurcated roots. Then that is kind of indicative of that happening in the development. All right, so last, we'll move on to the, let's hide that. We'll move on to the occlusal view now. So now we're talking occlusal view because we're into the premolars. So incisal edges, incisal view, that's for incisors and canines. And then we're getting into the occlusal view for the premolars and for molars. So this one is a little bit tricky, especially, and there's a lot going on with this because there's a lot of really distinct features in the premolars. And so let's get our measurements down here, and then we'll move into the drawing here. So our buccolingual crown is 9.2. I'm going a little bit past 4.5 to make up for that 9.2. It doesn't have to be exact, but close enough. And then our mesiodistal is 7.1. So we'll go 3.5 on either one, roughly. So again, you're going to see that the buccolingual crown width is wider than the mesiodistal crown width. So this one is going to be a lot more rounded than our canine. So as we come, sorry, I'm drawing, oh my gosh, this is hard. Thinking backwards here. So this mesial, this is going to be mesial. This is going to be distal, buccal, and then lingual. Okay, so the mesial side is a little bit flatter as we come up this way, and then we have almost a little indentation here as it extends into the kind of the height of contour of the buccal aspect. And then it's a lot more of a gradual curve through the distal side. And you'll see this in the drawings in the textbook. And then we really start to kind of narrow as, that's a little bit too extreme. We start to get a lot more narrow as we come to the lingual aspect. Here we go. Okay, so the biggest thing here is we have our two cusps, which are kind of right about here-ish. And when they come together, they form the occlusal plane, and we have a central groove that's going to run through the occlusal plane. And then we have the buccal, so we have this ridge that's coming between the two, the buccal triangular ridge is coming between the two cusps. So connecting these cusps, we'll do these triangles to indicate cusps, and then we have this ridge that's coming through. And on either side of this ridge, we're going to have pits. So we'll have our mesial pit and our distal pit. And then surrounding that, so we have our buccal triangular ridge on, let me get two colors here. So we'll do blue, buccal triangular ridge, and then red, lingual triangular ridge coming together, separating those pits. And then we have our central groove, and that is going to just run kind of straight through the middle here, and it kind of has a little bit of an angular shape here, and you'll see little kind of branches off of that main central groove. And then the biggest thing that's kind of interesting about this occlusal plane, and it's really, really distinct in some of the drawings, I'll use green for this, is you're going to have this really distinct kind of outline of the occlusal plane as it comes around the central groove, the pits, and kind of makes its way in between all of the stuff that's happening here. And so this is kind of what that looks like. You'll see that really distinct on some of the drawings here. And then the other thing that's a little bit tricky about this view is on the lingual aspect. You know, our cusp is here, and we need to kind of indicate that there's some height to this, some elevation. And so you'll see a ridge, the mesial and distal marginal ridges of this come around, and we'll use yellow for these. So the mesial and distal marginal ridges come around here, and they go up to the cusp like that. So if we erase that and then we shade in a little bit to kind of show some depth here, then we'll see, we'll see that lingual side as it's coming up this way. You got to think about kind of a mountain peak as it's coming up to form that cusp. So there you have it. That's the occlusal view. And we did the mesial view and then the lingual view, so hopefully you guys will be able to figure everything else out that you need there. The premolars have some really cool anatomy happening with them. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and good luck.